Good evening, familia. This is Collazo, and you're watching and listening to the Found in Translation Talk Show, the talk show that talks truth about politics and today's hottest issues. Thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you again if you're watching. First of all, if you're watching live, either on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube live for this very important conversation, there are actually two very important conversations we're going to have here on today's show. We encourage you to share this content with your friends. We're going to have a very in-depth conversation, not only about autism awareness, it being not only Autism Awareness Month, but indeed International Autism Awareness Day, as well as the continued conversation we're having about how to support our loved ones, friends and family, and community, especially the most vulnerable during this COVID-19 season. This is your host, Ray Collazo. Thank you again so much for joining us. And for my podcast listener, my ride or dies, always a pleasure to have you part of the show on the audio side, as well as a radio program at WPPM 106.5 FM in Philadelphia, the city that loves you back, People Power Media. We're really excited to have this show. And later on in the show, you're going to hear from a panel of experts and activists who are members of the Pennsylvania Governor's Advisory Commission on Latino Affairs, who are going to share with us what the state is doing and what are some of the resources available to the Latino community, and indeed all residents in Pennsylvania, but particularly those that may have, that traditionally are amongst the most disadvantaged and hard to reach populations in our society. We want to make sure everyone is protected, safe, but also is protected. Their children are protected and protected from an economic safety net perspective in these very challenging times. And I want to introduce a panelists as it relates to autism awareness, who are going to share with us their personal stories as mothers, as family members, as advocates of children on the spectrum. And this is I'm so happy to announce that this theme and this topic is going to be, we're dedicating the rest of the calendar year on the show Found in Translation to this very important topic that permeates and hits really everyone in our community. We have so many children in our family circle and extended network who are on the spectrum, and we want to be there for those children. We want to be there for their caregivers. We want to be there for the loved ones. We want to be there for all of us, so that we can help the children, our loved ones on the spectrum thrive as they develop. And who better to have us a part of this conversation than a member of the family and someone that is a very celebrated executive consultant, and someone that actually served in President Obama administration. But most importantly, in this case, is a fierce parent advocate for her autistic children. Teresa Chaurand, welcome to Found in Translation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to talk about this evening.
Yes, and yet another member of the kingdom. Of course, I'm referring to not a religious context. We're having fun. This is Kansas City Chiefs Nation is always represented very well on the show. So,
that's right.
Of course, the Chaurand family are cousins of mine. Of course, out from the Kansas City area. We got a lot of love for Enrique and your whole clan out there, and our friends out in Kansas City. Teresa, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you. We're all kind of hunkered down and doing the best we can to support one another and be responsible given everything that's going on, and trying to maintain our sanity. So this is a lot of balls in the air, but we're doing good.
Well, when you and I think you're the first person I had this conversation with, as it related to, this is something I was thinking about, and we had a brief conversation related to what you thought the elements were of kind of dedicating programming, not just today, which is obvious, not just throughout the month of April, but we're going to have segments throughout the year on how to support our loved ones that are on the spectrum, and also the caregivers of because that is a huge issue, especially now. And we're going to get into this in a little bit around, in this even more challenging COVID-19 season, which creates potentially more isolation. So we had a great conversation. And after I spoke to you, I said, you know what? We could have a doctor on here, and we will. We'll have formal educators and doctors and experts and people that are actually on the spectrum on the show to discuss these issues. But I thought it would be very appropriate that we started with mothers and started with parents. So can you share a little bit with our Found in Translation community your story and the story of your children, and how you got that brought you to being part of the autism advocate community?
Sure, absolutely. So I have twins. My husband and I have twins, a boy and a girl, that are on the spectrum. They are going to be turning 17 this summer. And I will say, if you go back in time and you think 17 years ago, a lot has changed since that point. One of the biggest points is that autism awareness was kind of coming into focus, I would say. I think, for my husband and myself, we were learning day by day. It was further amplified by the fact that our twins were born really early. They were born at 27 weeks, which was a blessing and a miracle that they have lived through that and survived and thrived. But for the first couple of years, we weren't sure if we were dealing with the results of them being so premature when they were born, or if it was because, we didn't actually know at the time. Because they had told us, there's going to be delays with their speech, with their development. It could be a lot of things. So we were, in some ways prepared for anything. And the diagnosis of autism really wasn't even the first thing on my mind. It was, at the time, let's get them healthy, let's get them up to speed, let's make sure that they're doing well and trying to get them up where they should be. So that was kind of, it's when you put it in perspective that 17 years ago, we were still learning quite a bit. Fast forward, it's been a day-to-day learning for all of us, between our doctors telling us, oh, it could be this, that, or the other, or maybe, they are going to turn the corner and things are going to change for them. And I think from the onset, my husband and I, Enrique, realized we have to be their advocate, not only with doctors, but with schools, with community, with not so much family, because family, I guess I shouldn't assume it, but luckily we're in an environment, our family is so embracing. It was never, they were always helping them to be a part of that environment, to help them celebrate their successes. And so we were very fortunate in that regard. But again, fast forward 17 years, we've learned a tremendous amount in terms of being that advocate for them through all these aspects in their development.
Teresa, I want to ask you about kind of giving some tips to parents, because there's parents that you're on one part of this journey, and you've gone through several of these phases, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And there's parents now that are dealing, that are in various stages of this and have different concerns. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions. But first, I wanted to do a sound check from my co-host, Sulaih Picorelli. Sulaih, are you there?
Teresa, it's so wonderful to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
That's good all the time. I tell you, Sulaih was having some technical issues. She's a pro. She pulled through. Sulaih, I know before we introduce our other parent advocate on Found Translation related to autism and supporting all of our children on the spectrum, Sulaih, I know as a mother and someone that cares about a lot of family members that are impacted by autism, this is a very important conversation for you as well.
It really is. For many years, I worked in a school and I saw how families struggle, to get those supports. And, here in Philadelphia, there is a great need for specialized services. And I really consider that the community is really lucky here that there are programs available, that there are schools that are prepared to, house and teach students with, special needs. So I'm really excited about this conversation.
Absolutely. And when I put the call out and introduced that Teresa was going to be joining us on Found in Translation, someone who's a great friend to the show shared her story, her personal story on Facebook about being the mother of an autistic son. And I thought, you know what? She needs to be part of this conversation. Such a touching advocate in her own right and a great friend to the show. Marianel Agosto, welcome to Found in Translation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's just start there. You heard Teresa's story. Marianel, why don't we start there with your story about you and your son?
So I think, Teresa's story and I kind of go hand in hand. My son started displaying symptoms of autism like around 18 months. And I remember calling my mom and just telling her, hey, he's not talking, he's not developing at the same speed my daughter was at his age. And I remember my mom vividly saying, oh, he's a boy. Boys are slower than girls. Once he turns 2, he'll call you mommy. He'll start doing all these things. Well, 2 came and went and it wasn't happening. So to me, that was my cue. And along with, some awareness of my son's inability of doing certain things and meeting milestones, there was denial. So I would kind of sort of break down some of the symptoms that he was presenting. And I would then just go to a specialist. So for the tipito, I would go to a neurologist, a pediatrician, and the doctors kindly were redirecting me to the developmental side of things. Like, you need to go and see a developmental specialist. So it came to the point where I was like, all right, well, let's just figure this out and give this a try. And I was in Pennsylvania. I've been in Pennsylvania for the last 14 years. What a lot of people don't know about developmental pediatricians is that it's not a typical well checkup appointment. You have to fill out a packet that's this thick, and their appointments are, they're scheduling appointments 6 months to a year, 2 years out. I remember filling out 3 for Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the Lehigh Valley, and whoever called me first, that's who I went with. So I ended up going to St. Christopher's in Philadelphia, and my son was 2.5 when he was diagnosed. And we continue to go to St. Christopher's for the next, I would say, 7 to 8 years before the Lehigh Valley had some openings. And then we transitioned, and we've been going to Dr. Straka in Bethlehem for the last 2 years. And so, yeah, that's my story.
Marianel, one of the things that you put, and I'd like to get Teresa's thoughts on this as well, is that one of the tips that you put in your very thorough Facebook post yesterday was this concept of the importance of understanding how to engage the medical community as it relates to your son. Can you speak a little bit about that? And Teresa, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well, because there's sort of, I think a lot of times families, members, and loved ones that aren't as aware of the dynamics of the spectrum and autism in general, try to approach it from a medical perspective. And there's a lot of different ways there's a lot of different elements of treatment or support for our children.
Absolutely. So in my case, because as Teresa was saying, she and her husband were learning as they were going along. Well, so was I. So the way that I utilized the medical community was very simple. Anytime I had an appointment, I was bringing a family member with. My family took off from work. We would go to Philadelphia. And the doctors were kind enough to sit with us and actually have conversations about what autism was and how can they be supportive. So to me, that was the best way that I was able to kind of learn about autism as my family was learning, because my family was also involved. My family were also taking care of my son. My family they were the ones actually kind of getting me through, my moments. There were times where I needed a break, and it was my sister who would jump in and take care of my son, or my mother, or, my son's father. So it was very important to ensure that as I was learning and understanding autism, that they were also learning and understanding it, and that's how I engaged the medical community.
Teresa, can you jump in there, because there's all these points where you have to identify support for your children, right? There's and we'll get into the education piece in a second, because that's a whole other piece. But can you talk about just kind of like in general for parents just trying to get their minds around what are going to be the essential support mechanisms for your children, not only for your children, but for yourselves, right? So just can you talk a little bit about that and how you learned how to tap into those resources over the years?
So I will say the most important thing to remember here is there's not an actual diagnosis. There's not a test, like Maria was saying. It's like, it's not like they can go, okay, X, Y, and Z, this is what it is. It's very much based on behavior and patterns and things that they're seeing. Okay, if they're not speaking, there's a wide variety of things that they look at. For my daughter, some of it was her muscle tone, her
Teresa is frozen there. So Teresa, you may have to just jump back, back online. But Marianel, while we have that technical glitch there, can you just kind of jump in there and
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think what Teresa was trying to say is that each kid displays certain behaviors or certain things that are unique, but they also comprise, a symptom or a presentation of an autistic trait. For my son, it was the tiptoe walking, the repetitive behaviors. For Teresa, the low tone muscle, where they just can't for some reason, they just can't feel things in the same way that we do. For instance, with my son, he won't like if he were to put his finger on a candle, on a lit candle, his response is not going to be as quick as, as a typical or neurotypical kid. So I think that's what, Teresa was alluding to. It's not just, 1, 2, 3, your son or your daughter has autism. It's a very thorough evaluation where they ask, from, how was your labor? What was your diet during your pregnancy? Did anything abnormal happen during that time? Because as they are trying to get to that diagnosis, they're also trying to learn and trying to identify, if there is a correlation between what happened to you as a person or what happened or what's happening to the kid and other children. So autism, it continues to be studied, and we parents are part of that. There are studies that are huge, and there are your N=1 studies where parents have been also studying their children, and they say that if this happens, then it yields to this reaction, and other parents are kind of sort of then saying, oh, that happens to my kid too. So as much as we are learning from our kids and we're learning from the medical community, we're also learning from one another.
I'm learning so much about, just doing the research about the diversity of the spectrum, right? Like Asperger's, which is something that's a growing part of this conversation, is something that I know a lot of my friends' children are, and I have a son that's ADD. And so, like it's in that realm, right? So I have a taste of what y'all are experiencing on different levels. But Sulaih, I know as a mother, when we were having sort of our prep conversations around this episode, and again, you're listening to Marianel Agosto and Teresa Chaurand. We'll get her back on. She had a technical glitch, but Teresa, if you're watching, or Enrique, just have her log back on. It's the same. I'm sure it'll be fine. But we want to definitely get Teresa back in this conversation. We're talking to 2 mothers of autistic children on the spectrum. In the case of Teresa, fraternal twins. In the case of Marianel, a young son. And so we're really, hey, this is the kickoff of a series of conversations. Look, Found Translation is about the family. We're about supporting our loved ones. We're supporting all these wonderful children. I got so many little cousins and nieces and nephews that are on the spectrum. I got a lot of parents that, look, it's hard for guys. Sometimes it's hard for us to share around these struggles and around not knowing how to support your children sometimes and feeling hopeless. I know it happens to me in other circumstances. So, I figured this is a way we can all learn and share and support each other. And Marianel and Teresa and others, thank you for sharing. Sulaih, I know as a mother, we had this conversation around, we got to support the parents too. We got to support the moms too, because this is parenthood is un compromiso, but this is a tremendous lifetime responsibility that there's no playbook for. So I know Sulaih, right, that conversation.
And well, one of the things that we have to really talk about is when parents notice something and they want answers, they almost always they have to push and ask and almost bother. And not that you're being a bother, but that's how much you have to push for anyone in the medical field to take you seriously about something. It's like, listen, I live with my child. I know my child. Just, let's do something about this. Oh, it's just kids. It's just, growing up, or whatever they want to say. So I have to commend the parents for pushing as hard as they do and advocating as hard as they do for their children, because if we're not going to do it, no one else out there is going to. Do you find, Marianel, that you had a bit of a struggle, or, maybe it could have been a little, just heard a little better?
To be honest with you, the medical community has been extremely supportive. Typically, when I go to one of the appointments, I have my list of questions. These
Right.
appointments can, depending on the presentation of your child, these appointments can be done every 6 months, every 3 months, or once a year. So I go ready. Typically, the medical community hasn't been an issue. I have a few things that I would want to say about IEPs and the educational community.
Why don't we
Mhm.
jump in there? And Teresa, why don't you mind? And thank you for getting back on these technical glitches. You know, everyone's we're juicing the Wi-Fi system in this country more than ever before with COVID-19. So, and one of my sons is like, our internet's unstable on my iPad. I'm in the middle of a game and it crashes. I'm like, you know what? These are these are first world problems, my man. Get used to it. Teresa, can you jump in that conversation? Because the education piece, and now it's getting exacerbated with COVID, right? But in general, can you
Mhm.
talk about this? Because you talk about something that's evolved in the last 10, 15 years. Is I would
Mhm.
imagine when your children were babies, the education system had very little resources, and we've moved
Yeah.
along, but it's still a case by case basis, school district by school district, school by school situation. Can you
Mhm.
talk about some basics around the path for people as they
Right.
help their children navigate through their education stuff?
Sure, sure. I think what you were just commenting about, each district is very different. I think resources really vary based on where you are. You know, you mentioned at the top of the show we're Kansas Cityans, and that's where we started when we were with the kids. And so after their initial, it started to sink in with us after the pediatrician said, "I think this is what we're looking at." Then we kind of switched over to, okay, so what is the support that we can start to provide them? Because whether or not you have a diagnosis, you know that you need to help your child in some way, shape, or form. If it's speech, if it's physical therapy, if it's occupational therapy, you know that something needs to be done. And so we were able to partner with a hospital that said, we have this other therapy group that will allow you to get some services early on. Then they recommended that we reach out to the school district, because even prior to pre-K or pre-K for all or Head Start, they do have some intervention programs that you can participate in, even if it's you're taking your child like once or twice a week, for these different services, because they're trying to at least engage with your child before they're trying to integrate into some kind of school system. And I'll be honest with you, like I won't mention, but some school districts are better at it than others. But at least as a parent, you learn to ask questions, you know where you can lean in, and that information can transfer with you wherever you go. So we tried Montessori schools because we had received some advice that said, giving them this kind of broader environment to learn and learn at their pace. For one of my children, that was great. The other one was like running in the halls, and I was like, this is not working. So it was a little bit of trial and error, but it was a lot of asking questions. By the time they were in elementary school, they were on a very specific IEP that had all of those services. Now, one of the things that we were challenged with is we had a principal, as nice as he was more concerned about his test scores and was making recommendations that we put one of our twins into
you see the Puerto Ricans are nodding their heads because we've gone through this. Because the dirty little secret, look,
Yeah,
and my son's ADD, but the dirty little secret about schools and school systems is that,
Mhm.
well, part that piece, right? Testing, but it's all
Right.
about you, while you're legally, and you brought this up on your Facebook with Money and Elle about the IEPs, right? Legally, they have the resources to do the support for your children, but it's a budgetary question, because if they utilize those resources for your kid, that's less money they got for other things. So you constantly, even in the best case scenario, you have to advocate for your kids.
You do, you absolutely do. And I think with my daughter Lucia, she's the best way I can describe her is, even without her diagnosis, she's a very shy person. She is. And so it's even more amplified. And I think if you don't have someone that's engaging and really reaching out to your child, they can just kind of like fade into the background. And we were just not going to allow that to happen. And so we really advocated and said, if we put her in an environment where she is amongst peers that are not challenging her at least a little bit, she's going to take steps backwards. And so we pushed really, really hard and said, no, this is not going to happen. That we want this. I will tell you, we had an amazing group of teachers around the twins, from, the psychologist, from just people that knew them, teachers in the classroom, the paras, speech therapists, you name it. And finally, I remember one of the teachers pulling me aside and said, you need to ask for a para. You need to ask, and they're not going to give it to you unless you ask.
That's right.
And I was like, that is the craziest thing I've heard, but it's true. And it's not just unique to those that are on the spectrum. Somebody may have some other disability or maybe have some other specific need. But school districts, I don't know if it's a legal thing. I don't know if it's a budget thing. I don't understand it. But unless a parent says, no, this is what I'm asking for, and I'm not going to stop asking until I get it, then they'll give it to you. All of a sudden, They have resources.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's, again, going back to that balance between, look, I want them to thrive. I don't want them to be in an environment where they're so challenged, where they're frustrated, but also don't just like have them sit in a chair and not engage. And so that's been kind of our approach to this, is trying to strike that balance between pushing them just enough to where they're learning and they're expanding, but then, but also that delicate balance of not, I don't want to, saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just feeling like I'm behind. So it's like I said, and that goes back to my day to day. It's like, how are they feeling today? What's going on? How are they doing with their grades? How are they doing in totality? How are they doing with their friendships? How are they doing just kind of moving throughout their day, either if it's in a work program or if it's in the classroom or if it's in the halls. You really just kind of have to take it day to day and understand there isn't one way of doing things. It's what's right for your child.
Teresa, we have loved ones throughout that are, various ages. But I know that when talking to my friends that have autistic children, is that, every year and every cycle of their child's development is a new phase for them, right? So
Right.
you're in a certain phase where, they're sort of about to enter adulthood. And I know we have some, especially some that are more, I don't know if severe is the right, but have for lack of a better term, more severe.
They're more affected. They're more affected.
And and so there's concern about this is a lifetime commit. Who's going to take care of this my loved one when I'm gone? To that point. But where they're at. So any advice to parents that maybe they have 6, 7-year-olds now thinking about how's it going to be like when they're 16? So just thinking about the different stages of support your child is going to need.
I'm actually really optimistic. And I think, one of the things you picked up on was an article that I wrote, just in terms of now that they're at that point where they're coming out of the system, in the school system, and thinking about what's next for them, and trying to balance what I think they're capable of as opposed to what's really possible, right? And trying to figure that piece out. I will tell you, just this past week, again, so they were born in August, so they started a year late. We're currently in the Montgomery County School District in Maryland, which is fantastic. They are 17. They can actually stay in the system till they're 21. Their last year and a half or 2 years is really, they kind of graduated as senior, if you will, but it allows them to take classes at a community college. It allows them to do a work program. There's a lot of other opportunities. So it's not just like they're just in school another year. And let me be clear, especially for my son, he's very aware of the fact that I'm almost 18. I'm supposed to be going on college tours. I'm supposed to be graduating. I'm supposed to be doing these things. And so it's, as a parent, it's like I'm trying to not get him so really excited because those options may not be there in a traditional sense. But what we're already talking about now is I'm talking to people that are in this space that help them transition from high school into what will be the next phase of their life. Is it working? Is it, what does that look like? And so it's the disability programs that will follow them in for the years to come. It's hard for me to imagine, even putting them on a public bus to go to a work site. I mean, it just gives me anxiety, and that's me more than them. But there are programs that they're going to.
I think we've gotten another frozen moment here. Marianelle, we're about to wrap up this segment, and we'll put Teresa on the queue. Teresa, again, just jump back on. But Marianelle, what's your last message? You're gonna come back and keep talking about this subject because we have a tremendous amount of interest, and there's just obviously we're dealing with one of America's great natural disasters, so we had to dedicate some time to that today. We have another great panel coming up in a second, but this is going to be a theme for us. Heck, you probably come back later this month because we're going to keep talking about autism. I don't know if you heard, we announced to be in the show. This is the initiative we're going to have for the rest of the year.
Awesome.
So we're going to have regular segments and Sulaih, we've already talked about doing a live show up in Allentown, whenever we can get out of our house, and we can engage further in this issue with our friends up there.
Yes.
But Mariana, what's your last message to people watching this that either, I think simply from the perspective of people like me, that we want to support our comadres, compadres that have children on the spectrum. We want to support our little cousins, little nieces, nephews, and just want to be advocates. So tell us, how can we be advocates for you and the loved ones in our lives that are on the spectrum?
That's a great question. My advice would be to be open to ask questions. The best question someone asked me was, how can I help you? They didn't know anything about anything, but they just knew that if they asked, how can I help you, they were going to learn how to help. And sometimes we need to, we can't assume as parents that other parents see and know the whole story. When you see a kid breaking into a tantrum at the supermarket, if you're not aware of what's going on, you'll be quick to say, esa mamá no lo está educando bien. You know, she's
Sí,
not
sí.
educating the kid well, right? As opposed to this kid just had a traumatic experience at the supermarket. The lights are too, you know, bright. Someone must have touched him the wrong way. Something must have happened to this kid, and he or she is just not responding well to the environment. And here is a mom, you know, with the cart full of groceries, just trying to keep it together. And I think the best that you can do for a parent is either, like, if you can't help and you're not willing, just stay shut, keep walking, or reach out and say, how can I help you? And I think that gets people, you know, that will get you a long way. And you will also not only help someone, but also learn a little bit about, you know, what's going on and how you could actually maybe help someone else. And the reason why I say, how can I help you, is because even though I have a kid with autism, my kid is just my kid, and he's unique to me, and he's unique to the spectrum. The way I handle my son, it's definitely not the way that another parent will handle their kids. So even myself, I would reach out to the mom and say, how can I help you get through this? And I think that's, you know, how we can not only show, you know, empathy, but also just help one another as human beings.
You know, Sulaih, Marianel, and Teresa may have to come back next week because we didn't even have time to get into how do we help these young people during this COVID situation. Because there's got to be even more anxiety. So this may just have to, you may just have to run it back. You know how they say in the street, when you win, we have to run this one back because there's so much interest in it. And let me tell you, you know, we know on Found Translation when we hit the note, because when we put out that we were going to do this, the reaction we got was unbelievable. People had ideas, resources. We didn't even get into the how do we support our Spanish dominant families in this whole situation. So we're going to bring you back, Marianella. You know, you're a big part of the fam and very supportive of us. And best to your son, best to your family, and just keep us posted how we can continue to elevate this issue. You're going to be part of our programming throughout the year on this subject. So you're watching and listening to Marianella Agosto from the Lehigh Valley, who's a great friend to the show and a great advocate. And Teresa, if you're watching, just jump back on because we want you to be part of the next conversation. Sulaih, let's just catch the let's just do a quick hit on this, so how people can subscribe to the show, and then we'll introduce our next panel.
Sure thing. So you are watching and listening Ray Collazo, Sulaih Picorelli, and the Found in Translation family on Found in Translation Talk Show. If you're watching live, please leave us your questions or your comments just down below. And thank you so much for participating in our show last week. That was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we had a lot of fun. And, you know, there's just too much to do on this show. And, you know, Zulaih's been reminding us to make sure, if you already have it, you got to get on the census thing. And I know, and maybe when we get some time next week, we both shared a very interesting experience. For Latinos, the census form is a little funky and sort of brings up race in a very clunky way. So I know that's something people are concerned about. So, but it's very important people complete the census. If you already have it now, if you haven't by now, whenever they start knocking on doors, they may start calling you now and emailing you to remind you. So we want people to continue to it's very important. And
I was under the impression that there was an extension to the census.
I would imagine there has been. Yeah, maybe
August 14th.
And you know what? Our guests can confirm that
Awesome.
in terms of the online version. So I want to bring Teresa back in this conversation. And Teresa, thank you again for apologize for the technical glitches, but I want to actually bring you and one of our very special guests. We are very honored to have our next panel is a group, some of the great leaders we have in our community, really great public servants, all of them, who are members of the Pennsylvania Governor's Advisory Commission on Latino Affairs. I want to shout out the executive director of GACLA, a great friend to the show, Luz Colon. And so they're going to come on the show to talk about all the resources available and how we're supporting people in any language, no matter what language they speak in Pennsylvania, around the very various resources that we need, that we have related to this, supporting our folks, particularly the most vulnerable during the COVID-19 season. But there's one panelist in particular that wanted to get on air specifically with Teresa together, one of our great community treasures, and a legendary activist and public servant, and member now of the Governor's Advisory Commission on Latino Affairs, Ida Castro. Ida, buenas noches. Dios la bendiga.
¿Qué tal, Rey? Buenas noches. Good evening.
I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to remember, but it made a big impact on my life. So when I met Ida Castro, at the time she was, and people with our national leadership would remember when she was the director of the EOC for this country. I mean, one of the highest ranking Latinas ever in the history of our federal government under the Clinton administration. Teresa Ida was an Obama appointee, so you share that in common. And so I was working for the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute at the time out of Chicago. And so I was in charge of like staffing Ida. So like make sure she had her water and, you know, and basically just serve her whatever she needed, right? So I said, oh, con gusto, right? This is like, you know, we're a great admirer of hers. So I go over to her and I start helping her out. I said, oh, do you need a pen? Do you need a water? She goes, ¿de qué parte de Puerto Rico es su familia? I said, bueno, mi mami de Orocovi. She goes, seguro que sí, porque tú tienes espíritu, el estilo de un jíbaro, papá. Tú tienes esa sangre de los gentes humildes del campo. So you spotted me very well. And I know my mom did good. Ida Castro, welcome to Found Translation.
Gracias. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
What a legend. What a legend. Teresa Chaurand, of course, also still with us. Before we get to the rest of the panel, I wanted to ask these two women, Sulaih, this question together. And again, you could take this however you want to take it, but I thought it was important. These are two women, two Latinas who are part of a very small sorority of Latinas who have been presidential appointees on some of the highest levels of our country, public service. And, you know, they've been in federal administrations dealing with all sorts of crises and all sorts of issues. And I just wanted you all to reflect, not so much even just your reflections on now as outsiders, observing, obviously supporting on some level, as advocates, though. Just your reflections on this moment in history. Either, let's start with you. Just observing what's happening, knowing how it is on the other side, when you're on the other side trying to tackle these issues from a federal government perspective. Just your reflections on this moment.
Well, I have been observing everything that's been going on, really con la boca abierta, quite frankly, quite surprised at what seems to be, I don't know, a slowness to act, right? Not because necessarily you're being measured, but because I sense concern, maybe even being scared to annoy the White House. When I served in the Clinton administration, I had a couple of positions in addition to chairmanship of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I started as the head of the Workers' Compensation Program. So we represented we dealt with 3 million employees, and Oklahoma City bombing happened. So, you know, that was a federal building. Everyone in that building and in surrounding buildings, because it was a cluster of federal employees, were affected. And all of that, of course, fell on the lap of my agency. At the time, I had really all of the support and all of the freedom to do what was necessary to serve the families and the individuals that were survivors, right? Because workers' comp really deals with the survivors and their families. And I was able to change rules, change regulations. I reported directly to Secretary Robert Reich and to members of the White House. And all I got was all the support in the world. Here, it's a different situation, right? What the involvement of the president during the bombing was one of really comforting the country, right? Allaying the fears and looking at enforcement in terms of finding who did it and what happened. So it's very different today, because what one sees publicly is contradictions in approach, is confusion at times, and it's attention to matters that are not necessarily in the best interest of the American people. COVID-19 is serious business. Those that become ill are really at peril, right? We never know who's going to walk away fine and who we will not see again.
That's
So
right.
this is a time where we need to be more together than any time that I can recall in my lifetime. I never thought I would be living through situations that we are living now. I am really concerned about my folk, los Latinos, because we are very gregarious. No le hacemos caso a nadie,
Yeah, this is a tough
right?
cultural one. This is a tough ask for our
Mhm.
folks. There's no question about it.
Muchacho, we know all of the solutions, right? Doctor says one thing and we say, no, pero eso yo puedo hacer otra cosa. We're always trying to look at things from an entirely different perspective.
No, Anita, and we're gonna talk about this in a moment in more
okay.
in depth with the panel. But I just, to that point, it's not just about our natural gregariousness, but it's also about, we have people that are isolated, and we have people that we're caregiving from a distance. And how do you support them when in fact you could be a danger to them hypothetically, because we obviously, most of us don't know if we have it or not, or we're carrying it. So there's a lot of issues we want to get into the rest of the panel, but I wanted to give Teresa Chaurand, who's been so gracious with her time this evening, not only as a parent advocate, but someone obviously who's paying very close attention to what's going on with COVID-19, just to give us, Teresa, your final thoughts, if you wanted to finalize the conversation about autism, or just piggyback on Ida's comments, sort of looking at this historically. So just want to give you a chance to say a few final words.
Sure, thank you. I think on the prior conversation, I think we all decided that there's a lot more to discuss, right? I mean, there's so many layers, and I think parents there's so many different dynamics at play. And so it's great. I'm so thrilled that you're going to continue this conversation. And
absolutely.
open it up for people to have
just the beginning.
dialogue.
I mean, there's just so much we have to get into, no question.
Sure. And in terms of where we are with this administration, I will say, my first position in the administration was in the Office of Presidential Personnel. Our position was always people are policy. The right people in the chairs are going to do the right thing for the people. If it's allocating funds, if it's allocating resources, if it's sharing information, if it's helping them build their businesses, whatever it may be, that was key. And I think where, we can all have our own opinions, and there are many to be had about the current administration. I think one of the biggest downfalls was the fact that people were not in the right places preparing for what could be. We had people that were handling FEMA. And of course, you can just pretty much put it on your calendar. Every couple of years, something's going to pop, right? You need to make sure that you have somebody in the right place.
And that guy running FEMA now, I wouldn't hire him to run my bakery. I mean, that guy, Gate Rayner, he's a joke. My God.
Well, I mean, he was acting. I mean, it's beyond me, because the Obama administration was so deliberate in making sure not only we found the right people, we ran them through ethics. We knew that they were going to do the right things when time came. We knew what we were dealing with and what we could call upon them to do. And I don't get the sense, not to put a blanket statement out there, I'm sure that there are plenty of appointees under this administration. They're doing it for the right reasons. However, unfortunately, it's being shrouded by the fact that government shrunk to a point where now it's detrimental. Layered upon that, which Ida was saying, is that there needs to be a level of trust, not only between the people in the administration that could say, I need to call in the president or the vice president's office or the AG to get what we need to get done. Right now, there is no level of trust between the administration itself and the governors, the mayors, anybody at the local level. Everybody's kind of out there blindly, just doing what they think is the right thing to do. And I think that was the biggest detriment for this president, was to say, oh, we don't need to fill that position. We don't need to do that. We'll make do. We're going to cut, funding. I think that was his biggest mistake. Well, there were many, but that was one of the big mistakes. And unfortunately, if you don't have people in there that are capable of reacting and thinking through resources and who can I call upon and who's going to have my back when I do this, you're starting so far behind.
Well, all I can say is this, is that when you have people like Ida Castro and Teresa Chaurand running things, you got things in good. You're connecting with the right kind of leadership and the right kind of perspective. And thank you, Teresa. You're going to come back. I really appreciate your willingness, your graciousness to share your personal story and how we support best of your children. Especially, I'm mad it even gets crazier with this whole situation. That's another conversation we need to have. We're definitely going to have you back very soon. And again, thank you so much for your leadership, and thank you for keeping Enrique in check. I mean, that you deserve a gold star for that anyway. So anyway,
He's probably the one draining the Wi-Fi right now. That's
yeah, he needs to
watching Chiefs reruns.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so Teresa Chaurand, thank you so much. You're always a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know you got your whole crew with you, so I know they've been very patient. So let's start getting them on the show.
Well,
so
I don't know that it's my crew, but I'm in good company.
There's no question about it. So let's just getting some people here, some people to announce. Damari will be with you in a quick second, but we have the executive director of Aclama, one of our local community organizations in Pennsylvania, great advocate, Venezolana.
Thank you. Yes,
and
that's right.
And a member of GACLA, Nelly Jimenez. Nelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming me to the show. I'm very excited to be here and ready to talk about, the different issues and the different actions that the governor have taken to make sure that every single Pennsylvania is taken care of.
Every single Pennsylvania, including the approximate 1 million Latinos that live in the state of Pennsylvania. That's right. You people in San Diego and Tucson, Arizona, El Paso, Texas, watch shows like, a un millón de hispano allá. Yes, we are a growing population with a lot of history here as well. So, and actually all of us have lived in different parts of the state as well.
But Ray, we need to do the census. Otherwise, we can talk a lot, but if
very important.
That's right. If we don't fill out the census, then how are we going to count and how we're going to prove that we are 1 million
Nelly,
strong?
just jump in there because there was supposed to be a period that was supposed to end yesterday where we were supposed to do it online. Now has that been extended? Update people how they can get engaged with the census.
Yeah, so it has been extended to August 14. So, but in reality, what we want is to really encourage people to be able to fill out the census online. Before there were different phases that people have to, that if you didn't fill it online, then you will have people coming to your house and knock at your door, what they call the enumerators. But with the changes now, we want to really motivate people to fill out the information only online, but they can do it over the phone, which it has been a very good way to help people that may not feel comfortable with the computer to complete the census. We just have to make sure that we let people know that that's an option. I can keep talking.
I'm frozen. Sulaih, you got to jump in there, my friend.
I just saw this. Nelly, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for that. Adrian, can you please introduce yourself and how is it that you're helping our folks during COVID? Adrian, you are muted. You are muted right now.
Yes, I am.
I can hear you now. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Hi.
I'm getting used to muting myself in all the virtual meetings just in case. But I'm also a member of GACLA, Adrian Rivera Reyes. My professional background is I am a scientist. I have a PhD in cell and molecular biology, and I work currently as a scientist, but also a community advocate and organizer in many ways in the Philadelphia area. Right now, we've been through other groups, including a group that I helped form here in Philly called Philly Boricuas. We started a social media channel that's basically to share information in Spanish. And it's for anyone and everyone, all over Pennsylvania, but also all my family that lives in Trenton, New Jersey. I added them all there, so they're getting information, and it's just for anyone who would like to get information in Spanish. And as of 2 days ago, I started reading through the press releases and taking on the press conferences that the Governor Wolf has been doing daily, and just summarizing them and synthesizing them, and just putting out videos out there with some of that important information that he and his administration and department have been giving out to people, but in Spanish as well.
That's a really great initiative for you to have started.
And thank you. Yeah, and no, I mean, it's part of GACLA. It's something that I was in conversations with our executive director, Luz, and we were trying to do it in different ways. And at the end of the day, we just decided to do it the way that we're doing it right now, just because of how easy it was to manage it that way. But today I also gave a shout out to El Censo. So I'm glad that Nelly's here because she can really speak about that. And we really, really need our people to do that. And now that we are under quarantine at our homes, the entire state, the entire Commonwealth, we have time to sit down and do that as well.
Thank you so much for that. Nelly, did you want to add something?
No. I was just following what he was saying. I think that sometimes people, because of the coronavirus, COVID-19, we have redirected our energy towards a lot of the coronavirus information and efforts, and we have forgotten that part of why we are not going to receive enough money or the money that we deserve is because in 2010 we didn't count everybody. We had a very big hole, and now we are right here in the middle of the pandemic trying to answer the questions, motivating people to fill out the census. And if something happened, like you were mentioning, every 2 years something's going to happen, or someone mentioned in the program, then what's going to happen later? So we have to think about, this is not only for here, this is going to impact us in the next 10 years. Also, we have to understand that our demographic had changed, and we have more and more Latinos living in the PA, right? So we have to make sure that we are counted. So when the federal government decides to send the resources, we get what we deserve. And also representation in the Congress. We need voices in Congress that represent all of us. And if we lose one of the chairs, which we did in the past, then who's going to be in Congress and representing our state? So we have to make sure that everybody's counted.
Nelly, allow me to introduce Dr. Damari Bonilla Rodriguez. Welcome to our show today.
Thank you.
Please.
Sure.
Tell us about your work and what you've been doing to support the community during COVID.
Thank you so much. So I'm also a GACLA commissioner. Pleased to be here with my fellow commissioners and with Ray, who I've worked with for some time. I represent the Poconos region. We are often disenfranchised and disconnected from the bigger cities and funding and resources. So a situation like this, where we're in such in a global crisis and such a delicate situation, it's more important to be connected to my colleagues and leadership. The commissioners for GACLA are the eyes and ears of the governor on the front lines, and we have been working together to ensure that our community has access to information in Spanish and accurate information, being sure that people understand the dynamics around the crisis, being sure that our communities understand the social distancing component and why can't they hang out together, as Ray alluded to earlier on the show. It's against our cultural nuances and norms not to be together, not to hug, not to connect in that way. And so there's a level of understanding that we need to ensure that our community has by just being sure that they have access to Spanish language materials, that it's accurate, that they're not being misled in any way. I'm also the a representative of the East Stroudsburg Area School District School Board, the first Hispanic ever elected in the school district's history. And so I'm an important liaison for our community, again, to ensure that there's a voice. One of the things that we've been doing in our school district is ensuring that students have meals, not just lunch for today, but breakfast for tomorrow, not just coming to the school to pick up the meals, but also that we're dropping them off. And we're the only school district in the area far and wide that is bringing meals to the bus stops where kids are normally dropped off and picked up, because we know that minority communities are working on the front lines and some parents are not home, right? So their kids can't even get to the schools to pick up the meal. So there are a lot of dynamics that the Latino community is facing at this time in this crisis.
What types of support do you think, Dr. Bonilla, that the community is in need of currently?
Well, in addition to the language materials, we've been just realizing that people just need this kind of space and this kind of forum. So I've been part of several opportunities to record YouTube videos with local press. I've been quoted in the local paper, just access to information, access to materials, resources such as unemployment information. So being sure that they understand what are the application processes looking like right now for unemployment, for SNAP benefits, government benefits. Our small businesses are suffering regardless of whether they're Latino-owned business or not. But when you add those language barriers and dynamics, it's even more delicate. So being sure that they understand what help is coming, how to access that help, being sure that they understand how to stay away and prevent being scammed, right? How to stay away from inaccurate information and those that are taking advantage of our communities at the moment. And just honestly, that it's going to be okay, but that we need to work on things together and what is happening on their behalf. Being a voice for the community and helping people work through some of those fears. Things like, honestly, spiritual support, regardless of what your beliefs are. People are really in need of faith over fear. And so we have online prayer groups and opportunities for people to come together and learn that there's some hope and that there are a lot of us that are fighting for them. Even if we're not in Harrisburg every day, we're connected to Harrisburg, we're connected to the big cities and the resources. So we're pushing out information on social media, through text messages, teaching people how to use technology like this, right? Because so much of us depend on it right now to stay connected, and our community doesn't have the information or the access. Some of our parents don't even have internet, and talking about homeschooling and now parents becoming the teachers, we've had to teach them how to use the computer, make sure that the school districts are providing computers for use at home, that there's free internet available to help them if they don't have it, and that if they don't have access to any of those resources, they have paper material. So we started virtual school on Monday, and it's been a challenge, and we've given our community 2 weeks as an opportunity to kind of get our feet wet and figure out how is this going to work, with the governor announcing this week that schools are closed without a date, right? It's indefinite right now. There is a lot at stake at the moment, and I know we can't cover it all in the hour that we've been on together, but there's a lot of work to be done.
There definitely is. Adrian, can you share where can we find Philly Boricuas? Is there a page available on Facebook? Tell us.
Yes, so there is a Facebook page called Philly Boricuas. There is an Instagram, but there's also the group that we formed, and it's a public group, and it's called Coronavirus Recursos para la Comunidad. And that's the channel that's fully in Spanish that everyone can just go there and post. We do try and keep an eye for information that we don't think is...
Can you say that again, the name of the group, Coronavirus?
Yes. Recursos para la Comunidad.
¿Todo seguido o una sola palabra?
No.
No, split. Like
Recursos para la comunidad. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to find... Okay. When I find that, if it has a handle, I'll send that so it's shorter. But yes, but basically we're just sharing information in Spanish, and a lot of what's been shared is, it's more also to build support, right? Not only information, but people can just go there, support each other in different ways, be it, by sharing positive things that they themselves are going, or just finding a familia, really, right, of people virtually that are all over the state, that we're going through this together, and that we really need to stay at home. To piggyback on what Damari was saying, the governor and the Department of I'm blanking on the name now, economics, but they sent a press release saying that for businesses, they've extended the deadline to apply to be considered a essential or life-sustaining business until tomorrow, Friday. So for business owners in the community that, meet any of the criteria, they have until tomorrow to go online to pa.gov and put their business through there so that they can get labeled as an essential business that can remain open during this as well.
Okay, and by the way, I'm back. This is Ray Collazo, the host of the show. Sulaih Picorelli. Sulaih, I know you're not a sports person, but does the name Willie Hernandez mean anything to you? Sad. This is Puerto Rican don't know about. So anyway, Willie Hernandez was the greatest Puerto Rican relief pitcher. So relievers come out the bench and save the game. So you were the Willie Hernandez of this show because the technical glitch. I got thrown off the side of the boat, and you came in and did a great job. So, there's no worse feeling than missing Found in Translation, and you're the host of the show. So I missed a couple of minutes rebooting my computer. So if you got into this, I apologize, but I wanted to get Ida Castro back in this conversation because Ida, I know, you're one of the great health advocates we have in our country, frankly. And, there's so much. Can you touch on, and again, if you touched on some of this, if you could just please let us know if there's something that we're missing that's really important. Like the health piece is just, how do we support our people just across the board, but particularly our more vulnerable that have either, their access to healthcare is very limited to begin with. So just any thoughts and anything specifically we should know about the state's efforts to provide as much health equity as we can in this challenging situation.
Well, here in Pennsylvania, we've been very fortunate to have the leadership of Governor Wolf and also the leadership of our Secretary of Health. They have been extremely assertive in moving forward, trying to prevent the spread, the undue and rapid spread of COVID-19. I've been very impressed with the fact that, for example, the Secretary of Health now has live, updates and has actually Spanish captioning. So we should know that so that we can make sure that our parents, our tios, our aunts, and everybody that may not speak English that well can read and really learn what is going on. Because I believe that, yes, we're gregarious, our culture is strong, we love to hang out, nos gusta los chistes, la bachata, all that stuff. But facts are facts. And health is key for all of us, and particularly for our loved ones, right? So we have, as a people, we have a very high incidence of asthma. We have a high incidence of high blood pressure. We have a high incidence of heart disease, of diabetes. Of all of these issues that make us so vulnerable to this virus. I mean, so it's not age. We're really overall a young people, but the real issue is that a lot of us are compromised and we're acting like this is just going to be a flu, a catarro, a monga, or whatever it is, influenza, whatever it is that we call it. But it's not. This is really a deadly virus, particularly when our systems are weakened. And we need to talk to all of our communities and make them understand that if you smoke and you get this, you are compromised. Okay. If you have diabetes and you get this, you are compromised. A lot of our tias and abuelas and all love to talk about what? The pills that they take, right? Well, if you're taking a lot of medication, you are compromised and you are subject then to having not only a bad experience, but a dangerous one. And now you're going to be totally isolated from everybody, right? How can you really expect to come back together when we're used to being with people and all of a sudden we find ourselves alone? So we need to know the facts. We need to be responsible for ourselves, and we need to be good role models for all the other Latinos and say, no, wear something in your face. No, keep your distance. Don't go play soccer. Don't play football. No, this is not the time to be irresponsible. It's not the time to laugh too loud. This is the time to take our future in our hands. Let other people be responsible, but we got to protect our own.
And I know that's very well said. And I know Sulaih has a question for Nelly Jimenez from Aclamo, and because they're on the front lines of servicing our community.
Yeah.
But before we get Sulaih to your question, to Nelly, and I have a question for Nelly too, is that to just put a fine point on what Ida Castro was saying. This is my opinion. I think the struggles we've had as immigrants, in the case of all the other non-Puerto Rican Latino communities, in the case most recently or more recently in terms of Puerto Ricans, is that we know how bad things can get. And so, we don't have any illusions of how serious this can be, because we've seen it in our native countries. That's why so many, dealing with very harsh situations. And in the case of Puerto Ricans, we've been dealing with this for the last 3 years. We know how serious these crises can be. And we know how, my words, not yours, that, when we don't have the right response from the top leadership, how it can turn a direction that doesn't seem like that's even possible in the United States. So I agree with you, Ida. I think our community knows this is serious. And I think that they're just looking, and that's why it's so important that we have people like GACLA, the governor's office, that are providing the Latino community culturally competent information in Los Dos Idioma for our community. They just need accurate, to your point, they need accurate information. So, Sulaih, I know you wanted to ask Nelly a question around how this this crisis impacting her services.
So I'm always interested to see how workplaces, how is it that they pivot in a time like this? And I'm really excited. I know, it's a tough moment we're going through right now, but it's exciting, the potential that, enterprise, and how is it that the workplace is going to be shifting to new ways of doing business and new ways of coming to work. How have you dealt with the changing model in such a short amount of time?
Yeah, so on March 11, when we were at the office, I was in a meeting outside, and that's when the governor for first time said, you guys have to, all go home, right, and close the non-essential businesses. And I went to Aclamo, to the buildings, and we went on a frantic trying to distribute food, and we did deliveries, and I got home very late. A lot of my staff did, trying to get that. But I think one of the changes for us is definitely being able to learn about new technology platforms and how to provide services. But we also have gone through trying to figure out how to best use those platforms and what are the platforms that people really need. So it's interactive, right? So there are a lot of things that we have changed and shifted through it. Remember, a lot of the services that we provide, they have to be face-to-face. So even our community is struggling right now because the warmth of coming to the building, they don't even have that, right? Like their safe place. And I think that one of the first things that we did, it was like the hotline, right? We created a hotline to be able to serve all of our more than 7,000 people that we normally serve. And what happening is that more people around the community started like how I communicate. So we started thinking in a more global way. How can we serve more Latinos, no one-on-one, because we have to be out there trying to serve everybody we can. So around March 18, 19, we started being very active in Facebook. Now, every day in the last 2 weeks, I have gone at 5 p.m. and I do a Facebook Live. And yes, and that has been very, very effective because a lot of these people know me. They know I'm the executive director. I always tell them, this is me, this is the face, but I have a bond. All my staff is behind me and all the services that we provide. So every afternoon we go at 5, and we have seen how people are so appreciative of seeing someone's face that they know that is a leader in their community, giving them information, sharing resources. So and I tell them, Telemundo is here, and I have worked with Telemundo to do some of, giving them access to that information. They still, because we are so grassroots, right? In Montgomery County and Chester County, they want to see someone that is like them, that talks like them. So I go and I think the other thing is that I've been trying to keep calm and composed when I do my news. So when I inform them, I follow every single press release from the governor every single day. Luz sometimes send 2,000 from all over. So I pick and choose, right? But from the health department perspective, because a lot of our clients feel that the information is flying and they're not getting. So I'm only giving them a summary of the information that is easy for them to understand. And I always tell them, every information I share is official, is information that it coming from a source that you can trust. And then I do also a summary for our county based on the press releases that our Montgomery County chair is doing, so we can we're able to really talk to people about the things that are impacting locally our community. And that includes when there have been distribution of food. A lot of the things that Mari mentioned before, we have done too. One of the things that we have also done that is a little bit different, we are doing and we're providing interpreters for the testing site. And not only in Spanish, but we have partnered with our Korean community, Chinese community, and Hindi. So we have 4 languages, and even Cambodia this week, we had to pull someone from the Cambodia community. But we want to be able to do that, also provide translations, interpretation services for a lot of our communities. And finally, and as important as everything else, not only providing, of course, the social emotional, but working with our small businesses. So we developed a new partnership with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and we are going to do an very big dine-in Latino this weekend. So if you are home and you want to contribute, and if you go to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce website, you can find information. You can register your business there if you are a restaurant, and then we can look into that list and then order for them. And that's a nice way to support our Latino businesses that are suffering right now through all these crises too.
I had a follow-up question with Nelly, but I know Dr. Bonilla, so good to see you, Damari. We hadn't been on screen together. Had a follow-up as related to virtual services, connecting with people in this new era.
Absolutely. It's good to see you too. I wanted to piggyback on Nelly's conversation about ensuring access to information and digestible information, because that's where the virtual component is really an asset at the moment. So it's a challenge in that not everybody has access to internet, particularly in low-income communities, but it's an asset for those that do have access to internet, because we're able to break down the information so they can digest it, but also having that visual component is very helpful so that people see what Nelly said. If she's calm as a leader in the community, that makes me feel calm as well. And that's some of what we've heard in terms of the use of videos. The other thing is that the virtual world is not only for meetings and professional work and community resources, but also as we talk about education, the students are now having to go online and learn virtually. In addition to that, families are connected virtually. We had over 40 people on Sunday celebrate my tia's birthday because we were supposed to be at dinner and we couldn't do that, right? And so we came together, and it was really funny because one of my titi's video was upside down and somebody else couldn't get on. And so it's really pushing us to kind of catch up on technology and understand how else can we connect, because it is for our community about that connectedness. So in all of these different spaces, virtual connection is the only way that we can really move forward, right? For all the work that everybody's doing.
No, absolutely. But I wanted to follow up on that question because I know there's a lot of concerns in the community around with education. I mean, let's keep it real. Every school district is different, So some of our kids got Chromebooks to take home with them. Some got a big stack of a paper, and maybe you could text the teacher about it. So and a lot in between, right? So how what other advice do you have, and what kind of resources do we have for our Latino parents that maybe are Spanish dominant, maybe are immigrant parents, maybe are from mixed status families, who knows, that they can access some resources to support them? Because best case scenario, they're working and there's limitations, right? There's another scenario where they are home, but they don't feel like they have the kind of the tools to help their children through this transition.
So
correct. So when you were offline, that's exactly what I was focusing.
Okay.
Sorry. That's what I was focusing on, because we do have a responsibility to ensure that we're meeting all of our students' needs. And one of the areas that we didn't get to touch on a little bit earlier when I was talking was the special education community. So when you have a student who is now virtually and or taking paper home, in addition, there's a language barrier at home. In addition, they don't have access to the internet and or media and all of these other areas of information. In addition, they have special needs. They have an IEP or a 504, a specific plan that needs to be served. We're now finding that we have to be creative about ensuring that we're meeting those needs. And I want to encourage all of us that are here and all those that are watching, if you have an opportunity to be a voice and an advocate in your community, services, whether it takes being somebody that breaks down the information so it's digestible, whether it takes you putting yourself in that position to be the spokesperson and remind those people in education, the administrators. As a school board member, I have a direct role in that, being sure that I'm having the conversation. One thing that I've been able to do in our school district is review the memos that are going out to families to ensure that there is a cultural lens, that there is a cultural sensitivity, and that the information is digestible so that people understand it. It's not about level of academic or not, but we do have communities that that are dealing with issues of language barriers and that are dealing with issues of even literacy levels. And that's not just the Latino community. And then when you add immigration issues and those fear that people in our community already have, that's elevated. And we need to be sure, how are we meeting those needs of our students? Nelly, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have done, and we have 140 students from our area that we are following up and doing activities in math and reading. One of the challenges is, of course, technology. And what we have done is to try to use some of the tools that they're using. So we know that a lot of immigrant families have WhatsApp. So we're using the WhatsApp more than ever. We also are doing videos where we read stories to the children in videos and videotape, and try to be funny to them and send them to them. So we have different tools that we use to try to give them the opportunity to not only keep that connection with us, but learning on different levels. I think that part of it is we are very concerned because a lot of our kids have no computers or access to computers in their home. They are doing their homework on their phone or the parents' phones. A lot of those phones are paid by the parents 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And what's going to happen?
Data, it's not unlimited. That's right.
That's right. And yes, we have Comcast. We have done a very big campaign, get that. But the problem is not only that, they pay for the phone to work. And if they are not able to work, they're going to have to choose between the $20 to pay for the phone or being able to put food in the table. So now we started a new campaign that is called Todos Comemos, we all eat, so we can have people, our staff, all the time trying to guide and direct people to get food so they don't have to spend the money on that. But there are a lot of needs. We have a lot of people with the medicine that are lacking now money to pay for co-payments. So you really have to be very creative in how you communicate with kids, working with the school district, right? And be that voice. So I sent an email today to the school district because they asked about, they were like, how can I help you? And I said, you can help me because our kids have no computers. How do you plan to do that? I want to know how the distribution is going to be. What happened with so that you have to use cars. Our families have no cars. So how are you planning to, help them if they have no cars? So I think this is the moment that, in a nice way, but also being very assertive about what your expectations are. This is what our families deserve, and this is what I want to see the school district doing on behalf of our kids and our families.
Yes, and Priscilla Medina in the chat brings up this question of sort of, why are there these different levels of resources for our kids? The short answer is it's part of a broader conversation. It's about income inequality in our society. And so this tragedy, this disaster, which is not going away. I know all you smart people understand that this is not a 4 to 6 week problem. This is a 18-month problem. But that this is really bringing up these holes in our society around food insecurity, around healthcare access, around how the immigrant population truly lives this second, third class status in our society in all these different ways, Nelly, that you just sort of teed up. And one of the big ones is these school systems that have neighborhood by neighborhood, school district by school district, much different levels of support for our children.
This is going to aggravate that, right? This is no joke. Like, we were in a bad situation before. This is just going to make it harder for our families. So we knew that our families didn't have computers in the first place. This happened. We didn't even have time to distribute it because this happened from one day to the other. And now we're seeing that, if you have family, if you have computer in your house, if you have your family is bilingual, or if your family have English and you have certain resources, your kids are, comfortable in their home and have all the resources. Instead, our families are trying to even feed, how can they feed their kids? And I think that it's going to be more, it's going to get worse. So now is a good way. Many people that haven't been involved, and sometimes I get frustrated. Like, if I call on my friends and the people that I work with, they're not involved on the things that matter to our community, like including, being an advocate when we talk about funding for the schools and the funding for the formula for the funding, and where is everybody before, right? So now we have to deal with what is right now, what we're dealing in this moment, and try to make the best of it. But we also have to be conscious that this is an issue that it wasn't 2 months or 1 year. This is part of the experience of many families from many years of being poor or live in poverty. And have inequalities in different areas and with different groups.
Yes, Ida Castro wanted to jump in on that part of the conversation on these inequalities that are being exposed. And we've been advocating for these issues for quite some time.
Yeah, and I think it's not just that they're being exposed, it's really coming to bear, right? So all of them are coming together and they're slapping everybody in the face. I think that this offers us a unique opportunity to raise the level of advocacy and really get fundamental change. We have a secretary in the state of education who's Latino, and he is the one person that could drive perhaps major and transformational change in how is it the schools are funded and for what. So we need to use this crisis as an opportunity, right, to move forward our concerns. In terms of health, right, so much is being done right now to go into telehealth, right? So COVID-19 has basically blown that up, and healthcare systems have gone from maybe, 10, 20, 30 appointments a week to 1,000 a day. So this is going to transform how health is delivered. We need to make sure that we jump on that bandwagon with the Secretary of Health, with the governor, now that we have people that relate to our needs better, not perfect, but better, and say, hey, if you're going to move in that direction, where are the Latino physicians? Where are the Latino caregivers, right? That can speak in Spanish, that can address the telehealth needs of our community. We need to be at the forefront of all of these questions so that every time a big issue arises, our tendency is, ¿cómo lo resolvemos nosotros? Pero that problem affects a whole bunch of people. And we need to be thinking about el millón, right? So how do we resolve it para el millón que existe y creciendo? So I think that it would be neat if we can start that conversation and bring together additional leaders to help GACLA, to help others to advocate for transformational change.
No question about it. And before we ask our panel to give us their final remarks, and we're going to bring Sulaih. Sulaih is going to be the save in this game because she's going to get the final question to ask everyone on the panel. I did very quickly, Adrian, since you're here. And actually, I know these are questions you've been very involved in for quite some time, but the relief package very quickly. The package, one of the things we were very concerned about is how it was going to treat and categorize relief to Puerto Rico. And I know we've had a Pennsylvania specific conversation, and I think I just wanted you to comment on this. So just to give you an example, it actually worked out a little better than we may have feared, frankly, because for the most part, the territories in Puerto Rico were classified for support, whether it was SNAP benefits or other types of payments, as states were. There were some notable exceptions. I didn't realize this till yesterday, but the majority of nonprofits in Puerto Rico are not official 501c3s with the federal government. They're only registered with the Commonwealth government, so they're not going to be eligible for the same sort of small business support. So that I'm very concerned about. And apparently the SNAP $200 million grant that's being given to the islands about 80% short of the need for the next few months. So there's a lot of things we can be concerned about. But Adrian, as a Puerto Rican activist based here, just your message around this lens of Puerto Rican activism, not only for Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania and diaspora, but making sure that we're keeping out to also support the people on the island.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this federal government has been notorious in really not providing the need and help that for many communities, right? And we've seen this throughout. And right now, it's the same story. It's kind of left to the people again to show for themselves that they can't depend on the government. And it is a tragedy. That's more a political tragedy, but yeah, it's extremely important. We need to make sure that the funding that is supposed to be allocated, that it actually gets there so that it can help people. But then I just saw a comment that pop up. The census is also important, and I want to bring that back home because these are the measures that the federal government also tends to use when it comes to this type of stuff and how much help is going to go. But yes, I'm gonna keep it to that.
There you go. So Sulaih, since you're yes, Ida, please.
No, I was just gonna support what Adrian just said. The question of the census is crucial. And I worked in the federal government. In the federal government, what is not counted does not exist, period. So the numbers and the census is used for absolutely everything, from who represents you in the federal government to how much money do you get in any level. So that includes federal dollars for education, that includes federal dollars for health, that includes everything, even transportation, housing, everything. So being counted it is not just about you saying, well, I'll cooperate. It's not about cooperating. It's about giving back to your community and making sure that your community will get the resources that they need. Making sure that those like Nelly, like Damari, like everybody in Gakla, everybody out there in the front lines doing the hard work that wants to advocate on our behalf can demonstrate that we are there, that we exist, that we have the needs, that we know what age brackets we have, that we know what educational needs we will have, because the numbers will speak for themselves. And that is crucial. So please, 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 please get everybody to fill out that census form, to get online, help people figure out how to do it. When you're Latino, there are all these funky kind of things you gotta fill out. But I'll say this, it's the first time I've been able to say that I'm Puerto Rican, that I'm Taína, that I'm Black, and that I'm white, because I'm all of that I'm female. And so, there are a couple of other things that I wasn't able to say, but then that's okay, because you got to keep something for yourself.
There you go. So I'm going to ask Sulaih to ask a question. If every panelist can kind of give us a brief answer to wrap up this show. So Sulaih, get ready to ask this, come up with your last question for the panel. But just to underline what Ida said, this is just one example. There's an estimate that a quarter of every child in K through 12 in this country is Latino. So just imagine if our Latino serving school districts had the equitable resources that they deserve, just from the math, how much support our Latino children will have right now if we just had our fair share, not more, not special favor, just the amount of just for the equitable support for our young people. So to reiterate what y'all are saying, the census is crucially important. Sulaih, I know this has been a freewheeling conversation. You came off the bench and provided a lot of support, and we've had a lot of fun in this show. A lot of great friends joining the show here. But your last question to the panel, and again, if folks can give some closing remarks as we wrap up this very informative episode of Found in Translation.
I feel COVID se ha metido en cada recoveco de nuestra vida. Y si ustedes están comfortable, si se sienten cómodos contestando esta pregunta a nivel personal, cómo el COVID les ha afectado mayormente a cada uno. Nelly, let's start with you.
Okay. Me tiro antes para que no me espante, ¿verdad?
Okay.
Bueno, so, yo estoy en una situación, yo vivo en Scranton, Pensilvania, ahora yo vivo sola y mi escuela tuvo que cerrar. No tengo familia en Scranton porque no soy de aquí. Y estoy en una situación donde me paso enfrente de este laptop todo el día en reuniones de Zoom y no tengo, una vez se apaga esto, y estoy en la cuestión de salud, estoy viendo todos los datos, estoy viendo todo lo que está pasando, estoy dándole consejos a la gente, estoy dirigiendo estudiantes y dándole consejos a ellos, y cuando termine el día estoy aquí sola pensando, temiendo, ¿verdad? No dejando que nadie entre a mi casa porque no tengo la capacidad de estar desinfectándola todo el tiempo, ¿verdad? No puedo ir a ayudar a gente que necesita ayuda, que yo los conozco, yo estoy bien saludable, gracias a Dios, pero no puedo ir a ningún sitio. Mi hija, su papá tiene el virus él tiene 70 años, está comprometido. Mi hija es asmática y ella no lo puede ir a ayudar. Y el hombre vive solo en Jersey City. La cosa más triste del mundo. Y yo no puedo ir a donde mi hija tampoco a consolarla y a darle un abrazo, nada más que conversar con ella por teléfono y tratar de darle un poco de paz y de tranquilidad, porque ella no puede cuidar a su papá. Y yo no la puedo cuidar a ella. Así que esto es muy difícil. Y hay que prevenir que se ponga peor. ¿Ves? Porque nosotros tenemos que sobrevivir esto. Punto y se acabó. Como familia, como independientes, como individuos, pero como comunidad. Nosotros los latinos somos resilient. Tenemos esa capacidad. Hay gente que ha pasado la seca, la meca y la tontoneca por llegar a este país y darle una mejor vida a sus hijos. Hay que entonces cuidarse para que ese sueño se logre.
Dr. Damaris, same question for you. How has COVID affected you personally?
I think she's frozen.
I think so.
Yeah.
Nelly?
So I think right now it's very emotional.
Are you asking me?
I think she's coming.
You're back.
You're back, Damari?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, Nelly. Estoy aquí. También puedo contestar en español. Pienso que lo que Ida dijo es importante y es la prevención. Es un tiempo crítico para nosotros pensar más en la prevención que en cualquier cosa, porque esa es la salvación, ¿verdad? En este momento. Para mí, me considero bendecida que puedo trabajar de mi casa y tengo continuación de trabajo, de empleo en este momento, considerando que hay tantos que no pueden continuar de trabajar y los que sí están continuando están en peligro. En eso me considero bendecida, pero tratando de manejar el trabajo, la responsabilidad de la comunidad, la junta escolar directiva, GACLA, todos los roles que tengo en la cual estoy envuelta, y también ayudar a mis niños a aprender y ser maestra de los niños es difícil. Entonces, lo que pensaba mientras Ida hablaba es la importancia de no solo la salud física, pero la salud mental. Y para mí he tenido que tener esos momentos de enfoque espiritual, de darme un baño y dejar de chequear la noticia y el teléfono y salirme de la computadora unos ratos y tratar de calmarme mentalmente, emocionalmente, para poder seguir siendo líder y seguir siendo una voz a la comunidad y ayudar a mi familia, porque mi esposo trabaja en nuestra comunidad y en nuestra comunidad es una comunidad cerrada, lo que decimos gated, y él es responsable por proteger nuestra comunidad. Entonces, para también apoyarlo a él que salga a proteger nuestra comunidad. Gracias por preguntarle eso. Pienso que es importante saber que también nosotros como líderes comunitarios tenemos que navegar la situación muy delicada.
Sí.
Gracias.
I think that right now is such emotional time, because I feel that when you're a helper, right, and we all are, I think you have a sense of mixed emotions that you have to deal with, because you are trying to be safe and you understand that you have to wear the mask first and breathe, but you have a moral obligation with the people you are committed to, right? And I think it's always hard to balance that balance, but when it's in your face and there are people that are already dying every single day when I do the news and I tell my community, these people got infected and these people died. Like I'm always thinking about my parents that I haven't seen like in 3 weeks, because my husband goes to work every day because he's an essential worker. So, we don't want to have my parents here. Then I have my 3 kids that they're also going through their emotional, right? Because we have to bring 2 of them from college and they're also dealing with that. So sometimes it's not only about me and my families that I serve outside, but it's like, how can I also support my family in my house and keep, so that's a little bit hard. And then you feel bad because you think that you're not doing enough. And I think that's part of what we all feeling. I think that this morning, I don't know why, like I had a very emotional moment, and I normally try to keep my composure and I'm very organized, but I feel like either I always on the phone or here, my board is waiting for me right now. I have a meeting with them at 9:30 and they're still waiting for me. So, like, and my daughter said to me today, Mom, you're working more than before, right? Because we are putting so many, and then the kids show up in the programs, right? So, but I just wanna say that we just have to try to find that balance even more than before, right? And try to keep up our spirits, right? For me, I believe in God, so I put my hands and my family hands in His hands, and I say, God, guide me to do the best that I can for the people I love and the people in my community that needs me. And it is a big responsibility to bear in your shoulders, to be responsible for Latinos in Montgomery County and Chester County and in Pennsylvania. So I think that we also have to be kind to ourselves too. And I'm not very good in doing it, but I'm trying. I'm walking every day, and from always having dinner with my family. And I think that's the balance that we need to draw.
Nelly, that was an excellent answer. Before we get to Adrian, I just want to let you know you are formally excused. Please, I don't want you to take care of your board, Mama.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Nelly Jimenez from Aclamo. There you go. Representing as always. Representing as always. So I don't want to think, I don't want to pay back. You know what I'm saying? So Adrian, continue. That was an excellent question, Sulaih.
Mira, yo lo voy a hacer en español esta vez. Así que me pareció muy importante lo que dijo Nelly, ¿verdad? Con respecto a hacer... tenernos a nosotros mismos en consideración, ¿no? El momento por el que estamos pasando, lo estamos pasando todos, estamos todos en la misma situación, y es una situación extremadamente difícil, y es difícil para personas que son líderes, ¿verdad? Líderes comunitarios que, como bien decía Nelly, tienen o sienten la responsabilidad de estar y de convocar por sus comunidades y abogar por sus comunidades y diferentes personas. Pero también es extremadamente importante recordar que nosotros somos humanos y que a la vez que nos preocupamos por la comunidad y los vecinos y todas las personas que llevamos en nuestro corazón, también nuestras familias. A mí personalmente, mis papás viven en Puerto Rico, ambos tienen más de 60 años, mi papá es diabético y él tiene que trabajar, y todos los días le digo, no salgas, o tú sabes, mantente alejado de la gente, si no tienes que ver, porque pues me preocupa eso como hijo, ¿no? Y es algo que está en mí, que en todo momento, siempre que veo algo, ¿verdad? Y por eso sabemos que es bien difícil el tipo de prevención que tenemos que hacer, ¿verdad? Porque es estar en cuarentena en nuestras casas, solitos, como dijo Ida, o las personas que son afortunadas de tener una familia, pues estar 24/7 con la familia, que puede ser un montón, ¿verdad? Es muchísimo trabajo también, pero esa es la única manera de salvar a nuestros familiares, de salvar a nuestras comunidades y de protegerlos, ¿verdad? Y es como yo digo, yo quiero que mis papás vivan, ¿verdad? Y estén aquí mucho más tiempo conmigo, porque todavía están muy jóvenes. Pero para que eso suceda durante este momento, yo necesito que personas como yo, personas como nosotros, se queden en su casa, ¿verdad? Incluyéndolos a ellos. Y va a ser difícil, pero tenemos que tener en consideración que estamos todos en las mismas, y que lamentablemente es lo que tenemos que hacer si no queremos que esta situación también nos cueste muchísimas vidas y que dure el doble o el triple de lo que esperamos que dure, ¿verdad? Así que es una responsabilidad inmensa que de momentos se le tiró a todo el mundo, le cayó encima a todo el mundo, y todos tenemos que actuar con responsabilidad y con esa urgencia, ¿verdad? De que me estoy protegiendo a mí, pero también ustedes están protegiendo a mis papás, yo estoy protegiendo a sus papás, a mis abuelitos y todo eso.
You know, this is why I do the show, is that I've always felt, and I think I shared it with you all sort of individually over the years, is that I've always felt on some level a little selfish or a little guilty because I've been so fortunate to connect with people all over the country in my organizing work with people like that are on the screen right now. And the mission ultimately of the show, obviously there's political analysis and I get excited about certain political topics I like to share with people. But the reason ultimately I do the show is because we got to share the perspective and the leadership, not just in the Latino community, but I mean, this whole country, this whole world with people like we got on the screen. And look, Ida Castro, this is a legend we got in the building. I mean, let's keep it real. This is a legendary figure in our community and you deserve all the flowers and all the love that you get. You know that. Adrian, he's a rising star. He's the boy wonder of Philly. Everybody know he's doing big things. So impressive guy. And Damari, I gotta say this. It's so funny because I know I should refer to you as Dr. Bonilla Rodriguez, but you know how Damari lives in the boondocks now. You know, so I don't see her that much. But I'm always reminded when I connect with you 2 or 3 times, I'm like, Coño, Damari is so good. She is so sharp. So you need to keep coming on the show. We need to keep working. We got to just find excuses, Damari, to keep collaborating.
Yes, anytime.
Honestly, because you're so talented. And obviously, and Sulaih, let me tell you, you really stepped it up today. I really appreciate it because, you know, I get so excited about so many big things around here. And Sulaih, thank you for bringing the show back to what it needed to end with, which was how this is such a personal situation. And unfortunate, and one of the blessings of this tragedy. And I say tragedy because we're going to lose so many people. And I just got a text, a friend of mine who either, you know, the family, Brooklyn, Boricuas, 2 people are sick now and it's throwing everything off. So this is just a constant, this is not going away for a while. But one of the silver linings here is that we were able to ground ourselves in what really matters. In Sulaih, that's what you grounded us to end this conversation. So Sulaih Picorelli, my co-host, I want to thank you. Ida Castro, Dios la bendiga. You know how much we care about you. You know, we could just do this goofing around. We don't have to tape it. Let's just keep in touch. Adrian, you know, the last public appearance I had before this isolation was Adrian and a bunch of our friends and family went and go watch the basketball game together. You know, we're friends first. And Dr. Damari Bonilla Rodriguez, you know how we are, fam. Let's go keep working together. And we need to keep this education conversation going. And you're going to be a big part of that. Thank you all, familia, especially the marathoners that watched this nearly 2-hour show. This will be podcast as a separate episode because those were 2 incredible conversations. Marianela Agosto y Teresa Chaurand, thank you so much for teeing off the special series we're going to have on autism awareness. We got to support these kids and their loved ones. Thank you so much for joining Found Translation. Y felicidades.
Gracias. Thank you.
Dios los bendiga.